2020. We appreciate everyone who is participating in tonight's Park and Recreation teleconference meeting. This meeting will be conducted pursuant to the Governor's Executive Order N 29-20. Please bear with us as we attempt to use remote tools. Instructions to call into the meeting or participate from a computer are provided on the agenda on the city's website at www.cityofvacaville.com. Callers who wish to comment can press star 9 to get into the speaking queue. Computer users can click the raise hand button within their Zoom controls to request to speak. Madam Secretary, roll call, please.
Commissioner Merriment.
Present.
Commissioner Leonard.
Present.
Commissioner Lujan. Commissioner Thompson.
Present.
Commissioner Vasquez.
Here.
Vice Chair Rucker.
I'm here.
And Chair McMahon.
Here. Commissioner Thompson, could you lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance this evening, sir?
Yes, please join with me. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you very much for that, sir. Item number 3, approval of the agenda. Are there any corrections or changes to this evening's agenda? Seeing none, I'll take a motion to accept the agenda.
This is Commissioner Leonard. I move to approve the agenda.
Okay, we've got a motion and a second, please.
Second by Commissioner Vasquez.
Leonard and Vasquez, and a roll call vote, please.
Commissioner Merriment.
Yes.
Commissioner Leonard.
Aye.
Commissioner Thompson.
Yes.
Commissioner Vasquez.
Yes.
Vice Chair Rucker.
Aye.
Chair McMahon.
Aye. Item number 4, approval of the minutes. Are there any corrections or changes to the minutes for the meeting of November the 4th, 2020? Seeing none, I'll take a motion to accept the minutes.
This is Commissioner Thompson. I move approval.
We have a motion and a second, please.
This is Commissioner Merriment. I'll second.
Bruman. Okay, Thompson and Bruman, roll call vote, please.
Commissioner Merriment.
Yes.
Commissioner Leonard.
Aye.
Commissioner Thompson.
Yes.
Commissioner Vasquez.
Yes.
Vice Chair Rucker.
Yes.
And Chair McMahon.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you. We are now at agenda item 5, correspondence. Seeing none, we will move to presentations. Agenda item number 6, and there are no presentations this evening. We are now at item number 7, business from the floor. This is the time to address the commission with issues that are not on the agenda that are within the commission's subject matter jurisdiction. Maximum 3 minutes per speaker. Madam Secretary, do we have any callers on the line, ma'am?
We do, but no hands, Chair.
Okay, very good. We will close public comment. We are now at agenda item 8, which is business. We have 2 items this evening. Director Walker, if you would do the honors of introducing 8A, please.
Thank you, Chair McMahon. Tonight, Senior Planner Tyra Hayes will be presenting on the downtown specific plan. Staff felt it appropriate to bring this to the commission because there are several parks and recreation facilities in the downtown area. These include the Georgie Duke Gymnasium, Andrews Park, and the McBride Senior Center. Another reason to share the plan with the commission is because of late there has been more and more talk of public art in downtown. If our projects move forward, it is likely the Arts Advisory Committee will be involved. And as you are aware, the Arts Advisory Committee is an advisory body to the commission. So at this point, I will go ahead and turn it over to Senior Planner Tyra Hayes.
Thank you, Director Walker, and good evening, Commissioners. Tonight, I would like to share with you our Downtown Connectivity and Streetscape Design Plan, which is a major component of the overall Downtown Specific Plan. Next slide, please. So given the time of year we're currently in, I thought it would be appropriate to take a look at one of the most popular events that occur in our downtown, and that would be Merriment on Main. Now, I know things are a little different this year given COVID, but if you could think back to years prior, have you ever given thought to what exactly makes Merriment on Main such a popular event in downtown? My guess is you haven't given it too much thought, which is okay. My guess is you just know what it makes you feel like. But I'm curious, have you ever thought how maybe the active storefronts with their big windows and their lights on really affects your overall mood? Maybe it's the additional lighting that's strewn around downtown along our lampposts, along the buildings themselves. Maybe it's the fact that there's a lot of people about and you want to be part of that crowd. Maybe it's the fact that the streets are closed off and you feel safe with yourself and your family walking along the streets with no fear of any cars coming through. Maybe it's the overall sense of romanticism and it being a very family-friendly place. My guess is it provides you with an overall warm sense of community. Next slide, please. What you may not have considered is all of those factors that I kind of posed to you are very similar to what Disneyland has provided along Main Street, USA. This is an area, through its design, encourages people from all over the world to come down and visit it. Now, here we have a view of downtown Disneyland during after hours, so you do not have the pedestrians here. But you can see a lot of the same components that we have in our downtown during the Merriment on Main festivities. Here we have additional lighting along the buildings, along the storefronts. We have large open windows that are well lit, and it allows for easy viewability into those buildings. We have large sidewalks, which make it very comfortable to walk up and down the street. We have landscaping, which just adds to the overall environment. We have great signage. Not only do we know what we're looking at as we stand in front of it, but we can see down the street and we can see exactly where we want to go. Next slide, please. Now, I'm not implying that our downtown will ever be Disneyland, but what I am stating is with some careful planning and some very strategic improvements, our downtown can become a more desirable place to visit. And a lot of those improvements don't take a lot of work or money. They can come in terms of additional signage, additional lighting, not only along the streets, but on the buildings themselves. It can be widened sidewalks. It can be improved art installations that provide people places to walk to. We could consider closing down streets, if not permanently, maybe just during certain times of the year or during certain times of the month to provide additional comfortability along the streets during festivities. So with that, in 2019, the Community Development Department of the City of Vacaville was put in charge of creating what we call our Downtown Specific Plan. The main goal of the Downtown Specific Plan is to promote a physically, socially, and economically vibrant downtown. Our downtown has great bones, but I think a lot of us would agree that there's a lot of things that we can improve to make it an even more special place that we want to visit on a more regular basis. So we're not going to talk too much about the Downtown Specific Plan itself. We will touch upon just a couple of its components, but I did want to let you know that the Downtown Specific Plan overall will be looking at ways to encourage a more, not necessarily 24-hour mixed-use environment, but we want to make it an environment that people feel comfortable going to during outside of normal business hours. We're also looking to identify ways to provide incentives to get additional private investment downtown. We definitely want to look at improving public safety. We're looking at improving our pedestrian and bicycle connectivity, and that's something we're going to talk about a lot tonight. We're also going to be looking at ways to improve our streetscape design. And as Director Walker kind of alluded to, we are looking at ways to integrate a wonderful gem in our downtown more into downtown, and that would be Andrews Park and our Creek Walk. They're great amenities. We just need to make sure people know they're there and provide reasons for people to want to visit. Next slide, please. So the downtown specific plan overall encompasses a very large area of downtown, which generally extends just north of East Monte Vista, south to Interstate 80, west to the appropriately named West Street, and east to Depot Street. Next slide, please. So as I mentioned, the downtown specific plan has a lot of components. One of the main components will be the focus of tonight's discussion, and that's going to be our downtown connectivity and streetscape design plan. This plan was started slightly ahead of our overall downtown specific plan because it was funded by a Caltrans grant, which had a different time frame. The purpose of the downtown connectivity and streetscape design plan was to connect downtown to surrounding areas within Vacaville, but it was also to create a more pedestrian and bicycle-friendly environment that would then benefit our economic development of downtown. We have learned throughout our project that it's very helpful and beneficial to businesses if we have more foot traffic, especially when we pair that with large windows that are well lit. In addition to our connectivity and streetscape design plan, there's several other documents that we are currently working on, and we'll touch upon those in just a moment. And once we finish all of this, we will be using those components to create our downtown specific plan, which will be the comprehensive planning document for downtown. And we're hoping to have the public draft of that document available for people to review and comment in maybe June at the latest of 2021. Next slide, please. So as I mentioned, our downtown specific plan has a lot of different components. As you know, we're going to be talking about the connectivity streetscape design plan, but other components, which I would encourage you to take a look at, include things that address development and design guidelines for both public and private buildings. We're updating our historic Main Street design guidelines. We do want to make sure that we can support the historic nature of our downtown, while also balancing that with innovative design for new buildings and for resurfacing other buildings that might not have the same historical integrity as the core historic buildings downtown. We're also looking at ways to provide more affordable housing downtown. We have noted with work with our consultant team that in order to better support a very economically vibrant downtown, we need residents downtown throughout the day. So one way to do that is to provide those housing opportunities within our downtown plan project area. As I mentioned, we're also looking at ways to improve public safety. A lot of that has to do with providing additional lighting. We are looking into other things as well. You may have heard of a concept known as SEPTED. That is, forgive me, I'm not going to remember the right term, but basically it's designed through environmental design. It allows people to provide eyes on the street. And this is all done through very careful placement of landscaping and lighting. We already have provided an analysis on what it would take to provide a permanent farmers market pavilion downtown. And we have a wonderful document, probably one of my favorites so far, and that is what we call our retail strategy. This is a document that was created by our economic sub-consultant who is on our team, and it identifies several ways that we can improve our businesses downtown. So with all of this, think of this as the ingredients that we're using to bake our cake. And in this case, our cake will ultimately that comprehensive downtown specific plan, which I've been mentioning throughout the presentation so far, and I'll probably continue to mention throughout the duration of this presentation. Next slide, please. So with that, I would like to now focus our discussion on the downtown connectivity and streetscape design plan. Next slide, please. So as I mentioned, this document was started a little bit earlier than our downtown specific plan. It was funded by a separate grant, separate from the grant that we are currently using for our downtown specific plan. This grant was given to us by Caltrans, and really the focus was on improving walkability, transit, and bicycle opportunities within downtown. This document is very comprehensive in nature, and it was provided to you in your packet. I should note, I did save you probably 100 additional pages by not including the traffic study that was included as the appendix. But that document, as well as all the other documents I've mentioned tonight, are available for your review on the city's public outreach site, and that's letstalkvacaville.com. All you have to do is click on the Downtown Specific Plan logo, and over on the right-hand side of the screen, you will see our document library. All documents created to date are located within that library, and all future documents will also be located in that location. So to start off our downtown connectivity and streetscape design plan, we had created an inventory of how our streets kind of rate as they exist today. Now, this is a qualitative analysis, so there is no hard science behind it, but looking at factors that included sidewalks, trees, lighting, things that make walks a little more comfortable for pedestrians, the location of building frontages, the width of the streets, and whether or not there's on-street parking. We've rated our streets located within downtown based on a walkability score. Next slide, please. So the areas of downtown that achieve the high scores are shown in green. These are the areas, as you can see on the screen before you, that have well-developed sidewalks. In many cases, these sidewalks are usually quite wide. In some cases, they are detached from the main street. And between the sidewalks and the streets, there's additional landscaping, which provides not only a visual buffer and shade for the pedestrian, but also just provides a little additional comfort for that pedestrian from perhaps fast-moving cars on the street. So in addition to the sidewalks, these areas are typically well landscaped. They're very aesthetically pleasing. They usually provide a nice view, or they lead to a nice view, as shown on the screen before you. People typically know where they want to go when they're in these areas of downtown. These areas don't need too much improvement, in our opinion. That's not to say that we might want to provide additional things just because we can. Next slide, please. So the areas of downtown that were scored as medium in general, those are the areas that have been identified in yellow. These areas have some amenities that make it comfortable for pedestrians and bicyclists, but they don't have as many as those green areas. In this case, you have a picture of the Merchant and Mason intersection. For those of you who are familiar with this intersection, it's quite large in nature. It has 5 different streets coming into almost a star formation. And because of this, we do have very long lengths for people to walk from one part of the street to the other. Now, in order to address that, you can see that a raised median was provided crossing the street in front of you. Now, while this is a nice improvement, it's not very large. And if you have a lot of cars moving at a high rate of speed, it may not be comfortable to your casual walker or bicyclist. So while there are some amenities to be had in this location, there's a lot of room for improvement. Next slide, please. Now, the areas that received the lowest walkability score are shown in red. These are the areas that were severely lacking in all of the amenities necessary in order to make people feel comfortable either walking or biking in these areas. As you can see in the 2 examples provided to you, these areas typically lack sidewalks, or the sidewalks are very very narrow in nature. Perhaps they don't connect to another sidewalk. They just end. This is very common along Buck Avenue. These areas typically also do not have sufficient lighting. There's usually no bicycle facilities to be had. That is to say, there are no bike lanes. They're just not comfortable overall. However, I don't want that to discourage anyone because these are also areas that have a high level of opportunity, which we're about to review now. Next slide, please. So here, as we had done our walkability rating of downtown, we started to kind of pick things apart. While we realized we had some bike facilities already in existence downtown, that is to say, bike lanes, and in some cases a bike path, a lot of times they didn't create a comprehensive network where a person can feel comfortable riding from one side of downtown to the other. So the areas shown in yellow on your screen are those areas that have some kind of identified bike lane or bike path. The areas shown with the dashed orange line are the areas that we feel we need to connect. So by doing this, we can kind of create a grid pattern for bicyclists. Hopefully they're encouraging them to bicycle into downtown versus always feeling like they have to drive. Next slide, please. This is a real picture that we took when we were doing our walkability analysis. Here you have a picture of the Mason and Depot intersection. Now, I would like to note, we're kind of being picky here. This is the city's largest intersection, and it is located within downtown Vacaville. It's very large in nature, and it can be quite cumbersome to cover within the time allotted by the signal. Here we saw a man on a recumbent bike trying to go along with the speed of traffic. Now, anyone who's familiar with this intersection knows that cars move at a pretty rapid speed, and this caused us a lot of concern. There is a lot of opportunity here to make cyclists as well as pedestrians feel a little more comfortable trying to cover this very expansive intersection. Next slide, please. So, as I mentioned, we're going to be delving into ways that we can improve connectivity downtown. But before we do that, I want to show you what the ideal street would encompass. In a perfect world, we would provide complete streets throughout downtown. But before we can discuss that, we need to know what a complete street is. So here you have a cross-section of that idealistic complete street. In this case, if money were no object and there was plenty of land, we would include wide sidewalks that were very active with pedestrians. We would have dedicated bike lanes. Well, I won't go into the different type of bike facilities unless someone on the commission would like me to. But there's different ways we can provide bike paths and lanes for cyclists. Of course, it is a street, so we do need to have a very clear, active roadway so cars know where they're to be located and where pedestrians are supposed to be located. We would definitely provide safe crosswalks. We would include planting strips, not only to provide an additional barrier between people walking on the sidewalks and fast-moving vehicles, but this also provides much-needed shade during our very hot summers here in Vacaville. And lastly, we would provide green spaces, and this is really where the Parks and Recreation Commission comes in. We want to provide a destination for the cyclists and the pedestrians. We needed to give them a reason to want to go downtown. And it's with this mindset, we really believe with very careful planning, we can really highlight Andrews Park, Georgie Duke, the Creek Walk, as well as other amenities downtown. Next slide, please. So what we're talking about isn't really new to downtown. It's just not as widespread as it could be. So here we have the very notable welcome to downtown Vacaville sign, which is located on Davis Street. As you move, in this case, you'd be moving up the screen to Main Street. So here we have a lot of great components necessary to make a more pedestrian and bicycle-friendly environment. We have very highly visible curbs. We have a very highly visible crosswalk. Not only is this kind of an art component in its own way, it also greatly alerts vehicles that there may be people crossing in these locations. We have great signage. I would challenge anyone in this location to see that sign and not want to go visit downtown Vacaville. And lastly, as you can see here, we've got wonderful sidewalks that are very well shaded, which is much appreciated during our 104 plus degree temperatures during our summer. Next slide, please. So, as I mentioned, in an ideal world, we would design all of our streets to be complete in nature, but that's not reality, especially given that our main street was largely created in the late 1800s. And that's to say that a lot of our streets downtown are very narrow in width. So we've got to make do with what we have. Now, we have a lot of opportunities, and some of those opportunities could include things such as the things you see on your screen now. We could definitely improve, widen sidewalks where we have adequate right-of-way to allow that to happen. We could create what we call bulb outs at some of the larger intersections. This would be an option perhaps at the Mason Depot intersection. What happens when you create a bulb out is you're narrowing the distance that a pedestrian must cross in order to cross the overall intersection. We could definitely incorporate additional landscaping components. And what's great about landscaping is not only is it beautiful, but as we know, it does provide much needed shade, but it can also aid us with things such as stormwater filtration. We can most definitely look for ways to include additional plantings and what we call street furniture. So that could be things such as benches or additional bike racks. We most definitely could provide additional signage and lighting downtown. And the other thing that we are trying to do, and this is more of a component of our overall downtown specific plan, is we want to work with our businesses to create what we call activated storefronts. We need to find ways to make the storefronts themselves more interesting, more visually interesting to pedestrians. We want window shoppers. It has been shown through numerous studies that the more people you have walking by your business and they can clearly see into your business, the more likely they're going to be to visit your business as well as neighboring businesses. But this only works if you have enough businesses downtown to make it worth someone's while to come down there and walk the various streets. Next slide, please. So I'm just going to go over this very, very quickly. You're probably quite aware, but your Parks and Recreation and Open Space Master Plan does, to a point, address different type of pathways throughout the city, not only downtown. And one type of pathway has to do with different bicycle facilities. And there are different types of bicycle paths and facilities. The class 1 is typically an off-street path that is dedicated solely to bicycles or solely to bicycles and pedestrians. The closest thing we have to a class 1 downtown would be the pathways through Andrews Park. Now, I am quite aware that we currently have a policy in place that does prohibit bicycles on those paths, but I would like to have a conversation with the commission on whether or not you would consider allowing bicycles on those paths. And if not, would you be open to considering adding additional paths should the funding become available to help facilitate bicycle ridership through the park? Other type of bike facilities include our Class 2 bike lane. This is a striped lane within the public right-of-way. These bicycles are riding with traffic, but within a designated lane. A Class 3 bike lane is simply a bicyclist sharing the road with a vehicle. This is probably the least comfortable for your casual bike rider. And lastly, we have our newest type of bike lane, and it's called a Class 4 bike lane. This is becoming more popular in more urban areas. It's very popular in Sacramento. And in this case, the cyclist has his or her own designated bike lane within the public right-of-way, but they are physically separated from the vehicular traffic through some means of a barrier. In this case, we show a raised median, but you often also see things such as pylons or another physical barrier that can be used. Next slide, please. So here we thought it'd be fun to show the commission what downtown could look like with some of these improvements that we've been discussing tonight. So here, this is a real photo of Davis Street as it exists today. So just to orient everyone, we're looking north towards Main Street. You have Starbucks directly to your right, as well as Brendan Theater. Next slide, please. Here's what it could look like. Now, granted, this is an idealized simulation. This photo in front of you shows things such as a widened sidewalk, additional landscaping to provide shade for pedestrians. It has a designated Class 2 bicycle lane within the public right-of-way. So you do have a designated bike lane for the cyclist. In this case, we do provide additional landscaping within the median. This just kind of helps reduce the amount of surface area within the right-of-way. And I apologize, I probably should have explained to anyone who may be listening. When we say public right-of-way, we're talking for the most part about the area of pavement located between the two curbs of the street. So in this case, we did add the landscaped median, which reduces the overall appearance of all the asphalt, which has a great aesthetic view, but it also can reduce the heat emanating from the blacktop itself. It can also aid with stormwater drainage. Next slide, please. So here we have Mason Street looking east. This is how it exists today. As you can see, this is an area that we have designated as having a yellow or median walkability score. The reason for this is it does have sidewalks, but not much else. So let's see what it looks like with some improvements. Next slide, please. This is what it could look like. Now, again, I want to emphasize this is an idealized simulation of what it could look like. We are continuing to work with our Public Works Division to ensure that we have adequate public right-of-way to accommodate such improvements. In this case, we would widen the sidewalk for pedestrians. We would include additional landscaping. We would be including a landscape median. And we would also be included that Class 2 on-street bike lane. Now, I should note, land is limited, as many of you know. So in order to make something like this work, we would have to remove parking on one side of the street. And that is something that can be a little sensitive to some people. So these are all things that we are discussing with the public as we move forward with the creation of the downtown specific plan. Next slide, please. I believe this is our last simulation, and this is Dobbin Street looking north. So this is what it currently looks like now. I believe this was also another area that was rated as yellow on the walkability scale. We do have white sidewalks, which is a wonderful thing going for us. But again, we're lacking much else. And I should note that this is an area that does lead directly to the library as well as the McBride Senior Center, which is located just north of, you might see a little parking sign towards the middle of your screen. Next slide, please. And this is what it could look like. So just like the Mason Street example, in order to make something like this work, we would have to look at removing parking on one side of the street. But this would afford us the possibility of providing even additional wider sidewalks, landscaping, a Class 2 on-street bike lane, as well as other improvements. Next slide, please. So this isn't as flashy, some of the slides you just saw, but there's other small improvements that can also take place downtown. So I believe this is on Parker. I could be wrong about that. But on the street, we do have a lot of landscape strips that are currently not being maintained. One recommended improvement is to allow a landscape easement, which would allow either the city, should they choose to, landscape these areas, or conversely, we could allow the adjacent residential owners to landscape these areas, hopefully in a universal fashion, just so we have that continuity along the street frontage. Next slide, please. So there's a lot of things we can do to improve our public right-of-way, but then we have some fun things we can play with, and this is where we think that the Arts Commission may be interested in working with us. I should note I am currently working with Melody Ocampo from your department. I'm also working with City Planner Bavon, who works with me in the planning department, and Dan Huerta in our housing department, to come up with ideas on how we can help facilitate a mural program downtown. So in this case, we have a wonderful, very highly visual intersection downtown. Here, I believe we are looking at Merchant Street, and it's technically a street. This is Trianon Way, but let's be honest, we all treat it as an alleyway. So this is the alleyway that's located between the now vacant Amphlets building and the Rise and Redemption building, if that helps. On the other side of the street, we have, I believe it's a cigar bar. So the picture on the top shows what it currently looks like. There's a lot of real estate to be had here, but we don't feel like we're taking advantage of it. So a couple of years ago, we had a bunch of UC Davis students come and take a look at our city and identify ways that we can improve it. And one such recommendation was what you see in the photo below. In this case, it was recommended that we provide some type of mural on the old Amphlets building, but we also provide a vertical garden on the back of it. And then we create just kind of almost like a paseo in the alleyway. Now, granted, this is something that we would have to work with Recology on because we do have a lot of dumpsters in this location. But assuming we can resolve that issue, there's nothing that would prevent us from creating perhaps an art walk in this alleyway. This is something very common in Sacramento, and some of you may be familiar with those murals. So this is an area that would hopefully encourage people to come downtown and to experience something that's unique to Vacaville. The art can range. It could be something that is a nod to our historic past. It could be something looking forward to our future. We're only limited by our own imagination. For sake of time, let's go ahead and move forward to the next slide. Another recommendation, and this will also be subject to working with other agencies, including Recology, and that would be to provide a dual entrance into some of the buildings that back up the alleyways. So here we have a picture of an alleyway located within Sacramento. So here it's a very small area, but they really capitalize on the limited space. So here we have a very well-known bakery in downtown Sacramento. Its main entrance is off a main street, but we're looking at the rear of the building, and they were able to capitalize on a small amount of real estate at the rear of their building to provide additional seating. So this might be a little more relaxing to a pedestrian versus people who want to be in front of the building and be subject to vehicular noise and traffic. Next slide, please. And kind of the pinnacle of our presentation, and we are towards the end. I know we're running a little long. We have looked at ways that we can create a fabulous focal point for downtown. And this idea involves greatly enhancing and expanding our existing town square. So to orient everyone, the street located closest to the bottom of your screen is Main Street. You might see there's a big rectangle going north and south. That encompasses our existing town square as well as part of the parking lot in front of the library. In the very back, we have a green shape. That area designates the area along the existing creek. Next slide, please. So this is the same area from an aerial view. So I don't want to spend too much time on this because I have a couple of slides that kind of focuses a little more into it. But overall, we have a long-term conceptual plan for expanding town square. And based on all of our previous public outreach meetings, this was probably the most widely excitable plan that we got people excited over. So to kind of generalize what this would include, it would include expanding town square from its current location into the parking lot located in front of the town square library and extending it to the senior center. From there, we would add additional buildings that would probably encompass removing some of the existing buildings. But we would also be looking at providing just small, little, almost incubator kind of businesses We would also look at providing like little carts for people selling just small things. It could be anything from food to little trinkets. And we are also looking at almost like a second creek walk on the southern side of the creek itself. Next slide, please. So here we're just kind of focusing on some of the components of that expanded town square. So here you can see how we would, under this conceptual plan, which is at least 25 years in the making, it would be done in pieces. In this case, we would expand Town Square into the parking lot right in front of Town Square Library and reaches over to the Senior Center. That area would then be made into a pedestrian paseo. This would be an area that people could mull about. There would still be the possibility providing for delivery during off hours, and of course, as always, safety first. This would also work as an emergency vehicle access area. We would be adding additional landscaping for all the reasons we've been discussing tonight. We would definitely want to create a focal point along the creek, and that's what we're showing here. We would include a great overlook to the creek. We would definitely include additional kiosks, different pieces of art. We would give people someplace to go. So not only would the walk itself be comfortable in nature, because we've removed vehicular traffic, we've added lighting, we've added art, we've added all the other amenities we've been discussing tonight, but we've also given people reason to be here. Next slide, please. So here we're moving to the corner of Dobbin Street and East Monte Vista. So you'll see kind of in the center of the map, the existing senior center would remain in place. But around it, we would be looking at ways to provide additional either kiosks or buildings. Now, I know what you're probably thinking. I'm talking about removing a lot of parking. And you're right, I am. But I want to note that this is a long-term plan. And in order to realize this plan, it would require some type of parking garage. Now, this isn't something we would be looking at within the near term. And when I say near term, we're probably not going to be looking at anything like this for at least 10 years. But should we be fortunate enough to be so popular that we needed a parking garage, some point in the future, that is something that we could look into. And the plan you see before you does assume that there would be a parking garage included in this conceptual plan. Next slide, please. And lastly, we noted we need to give people a reason to come downtown. So first and foremost, they need to know we have a downtown. Still to this day, I am shocked how many people reside in Vacaville and don't know we have a wonderful little downtown. So it's one of the first questions I typically ask them if I happen to, engage them on the street or we do some pop-ups, things of that nature. People don't know we exist. So that's something that we can easily remedy by improving our signage. We have some signage, but as you see here, there is a lot of room for improvement. So by having a plan, we can now, let me back up. When we have an approved downtown specific plan, which includes all these various components, we can use that to make ourselves more competitive for grant funding. So that's one of the reasons we have these huge dreams, and we're trying to work out the details necessary to make it happen. It's only when you have a plan that we can apply for the competitive grants to get the money necessary to make them happen. Next slide, please. We had mentioned art. Art is a huge component of our downtown specific plan. This is something that we're really just now getting into. And as I previously noted, I am working with other city departments, including Parks and Recreation. And we have our city manager's full support to create a mural program downtown. So we will continue working with Parks and Recreation on this topic. Next slide, please. So, as I mentioned, we have been working on this plan for quite some time. We started in 2019. We're hoping to have the full comprehensive draft of this plan available for public review and comment. I'm really hoping for May of next year, which would then allow us to have it before our planning commission and our city council for approval around September of next year. There's a lot of other components still being worked on. These are all topics I typically will check in with our planning commission on a monthly basis. So I believe that might be it. Next slide, please. So I always like to end these very lengthy presentations with a reminder that if you've missed anything I've discussed tonight, a lot of this information can be found on the city's public outreach website, letstalkvacaville.com. All you have to do is click on the logo you see before you. You have all the documents there. All of my direct contact information is also available online, as well as the slide. I'm always happy to talk to anyone about the questions they may have, the ideas that they want to propose, concerns they may have. And with that, I conclude my very lengthy but hopefully interesting presentation. And I would love to encourage a discussion about anything that caught your interest during tonight's presentation. Thank you.
Tyra, thank you so much. It was absolutely informative, encouraging. It's exciting. We absolutely have an inviting, charming downtown that has yet to reach its full potential. So it's very exciting to see the plan and what we can hope for in the future for Vacaville. We absolutely have a lot of opportunity here to make this a destination, and for reasons for people to go downtown and ultimately stay downtown, spend money downtown, and all that good stuff. So thank you so much. Also, it's very encouraging that you have included the community. I've seen you guys out at different Creek Walk events and other areas, events in town, and it's great that we have community feedback and that they have a say in our downtown. So thank you so much for that. And I see we have a few commissioners with some questions, so we will open up the questions for the commission. Commissioner Leonard, please.
Thank you. Tyra, that was a really exciting presentation. It's been fantastic to see that pipe dream. One of the plus sides, the very few plus sides of COVID, it's been really exciting to see so much outdoor dining and activity downtown. And so seeing that plan for extending Town Square is exciting. Couple of questions. The Let's Talk Vacaville site is a really fantastic addition. Do you have any data, not specific data, but is the public engaging in that way, in that website to the extent the city wants at this point?
To be honest with you, no. Prior to COVID, our best public outreach was really going to where the people were. So there were several mornings where we had a little booth at the farmers market that was highly popular by far. We also had a couple of days where we set up a tent in Town Square. I think people were a little distrusting of us at first, but I think they finally warmed up to us. Now with COVID, we try to hold a lot of webinars, which, to be honest with you, aren't as well attended as we had hoped. So what we're also doing is we will pretty much present this topic to anyone who's willing to listen to us. So as I know at least one commissioner knows, we do actively participate in our Downtown Vacaville Business Improvement District meetings. But I would love if anyone has any other recommendations on how we can better reach the public on this topic.
Okay, thank you. We can certainly tap commissioners and have that discussion too as liaisons to the community. The pie in the sky, I'm assuming the limiting factors are funding, and you mentioned grant funding. Is grant funding, without grant funding, this isn't possible, correct?
The whole thing would not be possible. Some of it would, but it would also take far longer to reach this level of improvement.
Okay, and then best case scenario, they say we get the grant funding. You'd mentioned a timeline of 10 years for the park, maybe the parking garage, but best case scenario for this project, what would that rough, and we won't hold you to it, but what would that rough estimate timeline be?
Well, that depends. Are you referencing the improvements along the roadways, or are you looking more at the extension of Town Square?
Let's break them out into separate. So that's the time frame for the roadways and then time frame for Town Square.
Now, I'm kind of shooting from the hip here because we are still working with Public Works to look at the feasibility of all these improvements. So there is that to take into consideration. But I think we can comfortably say that we could be looking at improving some of the streets within probably 2 years. So one of the things that we have been tasked with through our city manager is we need to prioritize the improvements. We want to get the biggest bang for our buck. So I could definitely see improving some of the gateways into downtown as early as, I'd say, 2, maybe 3 years from now. Now, might not be to the extent I've shown you, but we would see some visual improvements. Town Square would probably take a little longer, to be honest with you. The biggest thing we have to contend with there, I hate to say it, it's not so much the cost, which is a huge factor. I think the biggest thing we have to contend with there is the fear associated with the loss of parking. So that's a whole nother topic we have talked about numerous times in front of our planning commission. I didn't discuss it tonight because it would take another hour easily, but we do have a very detailed parking study and a document that includes all the recommendations as it relates to parking. So we need to ensure the public, before we do any changes to our service parking lots, that we do have a way to ensure that we have adequate parking to not only serve our existing businesses, but also future business growth. So again, I'm shooting from the hip. I think the earliest we would see any improvements to Town Square, if we're lucky, would be 5 years, but I think we're probably more on a 10-year schedule for that.
Okay. Thank you so much, Tyra. I appreciate it.
Commissioner Lujan.
Hi, guys. Sorry, I came in a little late, but I did get to hear the beginning and throughout your great presentation. It's so exciting to be able to see a lot of what it could be, and very beautiful, great improvements, and agreed they should be prioritized. So I'm excited to continue to see the plan get built out. I was wondering, as the planning process continues, what considerations are given to local businesses to protect their presence there? So I know in a lot of other cities, as a city grows, so does demand, which gives chains quite the advantage. So in your experience, are there plans or preparations done to continue to promote local businesses?
Oh, that's a really good question. I can tell you up to this point, we've not really discussed that topic in great detail. We're now moving into everything you just discussed. So as part of the overall downtown specific plan, that's to say everything outside the connectivity plan, we are now identifying the uses we want to see permitted downtown. And from there, we're working on both design and development criteria. In fact, I think I just discussed the permitted uses with our planning commission last month. That's how new it is. There is one thing that we have discussed previously in front of our planning commission, and therefore it is public knowledge. And this could be read in more detail in our retail strategy. And that is, we want to look at limiting offices on the first floor of the building fronting the core section of Main Street. Now, we don't want to prohibit businesses, or keep saying businesses, my apologies. We don't want to limit offices overall, because we do realize offices have a place downtown, but perhaps it would be better to have those offices located out of the core area of Main Street, maybe onto some of the side streets, or perhaps we allow them to be located on the second floor. If you're familiar with Town Square, we do have some very large office buildings located on the second floor of the existing buildings. So that's one thing we've discussed so far. That's definitely subject to further discussion and public input, and that'll probably occur in front of our planning commission. I'm going to guess probably somewhere around March or April of next year. Now, in terms of chain businesses versus local, historically, we've not had that discussion, and it's not something that planning typically gets into. But with previous conversations with our economists, the overall size and configuration of our buildings downtown really don't lend themselves to large chains. It's the size of those offices, or it's the size of those buildings and their configuration that kind of hinders us, to be honest. And that's what's made it more challenging to locate successful businesses downtown. So we are looking at how businesses are currently configured and ways that we can improve those. So I don't know if that answered your question, but I do want to assure you that is something that we are currently working on and will continue to work on probably over the next 3 months.
Great. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. Any other commissioner comments or questions for Tyra?
Yeah, this is Commissioner Berowman.
Go ahead, sir.
Hi, Tara. How you doing?
Great, thank you.
Great presentation, and I like the development of the town square. That's going to be looking awesome. And I know you hit on a lot of things, what would bring people down, which is a big subject, is East Main. Is there any type of development happening there, or to build that into the bike paths and bringing people to come down to visit businesses, and what's going on with that?
Ooh, I should have been better prepared for that question. It comes up a lot. I know just enough about East Main to be a little dangerous. Mm-hmm. What I can tell you is our city manager's office, along with our housing department, are currently working on moving the East Main project forward. So it is still active and it is moving forward. A lot of the concepts being considered for our downtown specific plan have been incorporated into the East Main project. So there will definitely be connectivity between that residential area and overall downtown. So as I noted earlier, and I would highly, highly recommend you guys take a look at our retail strategy. It truly is my favorite document to date. It talks about the beneficial relationship between having residential buildings downtown and businesses. So the more people we have residing downtown, and the easier we make it for them to leave their cars at home and to walk the pathways, to walk the sidewalks in front of these new and improved building frontages, the better off downtown is going to be from an economic standpoint. So in terms of when it's going to be developed, unfortunately, I don't have that information, but I can tell you that there are routine discussions occurring in terms of getting that project up and having sticks in the ground.
Perfect. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Vice Chair Rucker.
Hello. Love the presentation. I really can't say that enough. And the art, I love how we've partnered with UC Davis students in the past. I don't know, it's kind of like a big picture type question, but in the future, I mean, like what kind of arts, what kind of artists are we considering to maybe make some improvements to the downtown area? The reason I ask that is because I would love to see a focus on students, people who are part of the community, people who can put up artwork, come back 20 years later and show their kids, the artwork that they put together for their city. I think it shows a really strong sense of community, long-term generational community. Additionally, it would really boost some of these students' resumes in terms of just kind of getting in the art field. So all that being said, what kind of artists are we considering to be a part of our downtown structure?
Well, I'm so happy that Melanie's also on this call because I'm working with her on this. Cool. We haven't really identified it quite yet. So getting that input is wonderful, and that's something we can definitely consider further. I think I can share this with you, but our city manager, Aaron Bush, has tasked us with a pretty tough task, but fun task. He wants us to have a mural project approved, or at least nearing approval, at the time we adopt our downtown specific plan in September of next year. So we're working quite hard to kind of figure out how to make this work in a way that would not only encourage artists to come downtown, but to make it worth their while. So we are looking at ways to make the entitlement process much easier and cleaner. So I think as of right now, we're kind of open to almost any idea. We definitely want murals. We do like freestanding art. We love mosaics. at this point in time, I think we're kind of open to almost anything as long as it, is it provides some kind of benefit to downtown.
Yeah, agreed. Cool. Well, like I said, I would love to see some student art focus. I mean, students are, I think, like, as all of us know, are incredibly talented. I've seen some artwork that you and some of our students here in Vacaville put together, and I'm constantly blown away. In downtown, to me, anywhere, whether it's Vacaville, where I'm from, in my hometown in upstate New York, it reminds you of community. It reminds you of togetherness. It reminds me of unity. And, just kind of having all these things in the city, to me, are really important, and putting them downtown are especially important. So just my 2 cents, but really excited to see what it's going to look like.
Wonderful. I am willing to do this. We have another planner in our office who is currently surveying other cities in California to see what their art program is and their mural program is. I am more than willing, if you would have me, to come back to the commission and share those findings with you to hopefully gather additional ideas on how we can make a very vibrant art scene downtown.
Yes, please. More art. I can't have enough art in the city, in my opinion. So I would personally love to see that, and I'm sure a couple other commissioners would love to see it too, if not all of them. I don't want to speak for everyone.
Thank you very much, Vice Chair Rucker. Any other commissioner comments? Tyra, thank you so much. It's notable, last week I spent a few days down in Pacific Grove and Monterey, and we rode bikes everywhere down there. They have a great trail system going from the small town of Pacific Grove into Monterey. And one of the things that was notable, Tyra, is that not every street had a bike lane, but they do have a main bike trail through the town, which made it very easy to park your bike and lock it up there and to simply walk into town, which their downtown was much like ours. It's got that same charm, and it's got that very easy walkable blocks that you can get through. So that might be something to consider as well, just a main artery through town, just due to the fact that real estate there is somewhat limited. But the plan is very exciting, and we all look forward to it. So thank you very much for the presentation. I do see that we have a few callers on the line. Madam Secretary, does anyone have their hand raised for public comment on the downtown specific plan?
Yes, Chair. So Kevin Riley, I'll go ahead and open your mic.
Hello, can everyone hear me all right?
Yes, sir. You've got 3 minutes, sir. Thank you.
Well, thank you so much. Well, my name is Kevin Riley. I'm a regional representative of Greenbelt Alliance, a local nonprofit looking to expand our open spaces in various Bay Area cities while also trying to address the issues of climate change. Well, anyway, first of all, I would just like to say thank you. This is actually my first time attending a Parks and Recreation Commission hearing here in Vacaville. And first of all, just wow, this was an excellent presentation. And so thank you so much. But also, just thinking about it, I attended a meeting just a few days ago in Fairfield, and let me just kind of start with this here. I think it's first of all, with this presentation and what the sites are set for on downtown Vacaville, I think are just absolutely amazing. I am a huge advocate for just class 4, if not class 1 bike lanes whenever we can have them around, and just putting in as many open spaces as we can. Now, I do know, and it's a great ambitious plan, and I love it. And I want to see it all happen. I want to see it all happen yesterday. But I think and this came to my mind just this. There was an issue in Fairfield just a few days ago. Not an issue, but a agenda item on their city council meeting regarding the use of parklets, which is when you convert a small parking stall in front of a business into a 4-by-8 foot or however big parking stalls are, into a space where businesses can use it for additional seating and just regular, just outdoor, a way to kind of revitalize the downtown area. And what I like about parklets is that it's really simple to do. It doesn't really require too much planning. A lot of it is just kind of a pre-assembled set. I think at that Fairfield City Council meeting, I think they talked about a price in between $2,500 and $5,000, and the businesses will pay for half of it, or I forget the exact details on financing. But, I was wondering if there was any, maybe any inclusion for having parklets into this specific plan, just because of their simplicity. And, it's definitely not a one-stop shop. Get it? It's definitely not just a one-stop shop for, being able to create a more vibrant downtown. But I think it's a good tool to have in the back of your pocket for, just quickly sprinkling, levels of outdoor, an outdoor vibrant kind of community. And then also a little bit of art, each business could kind of be set up to kind of design it as they wish to, so that was just a little bit of a thought I had. I just couldn't resist thinking about that, especially with the photos you were showing with the different alleyways and the different ways that those businesses in Sacramento were able to utilize their, that little tiny area, kind of like what a parklet can do. So just wanted to throw that in there. There's definitely an opportunity there, possibly.
Yes, sir. You're absolutely correct, Brian, and I appreciate that. And I think it was Commissioner Leonard had stated, if there's anything that good has come out of COVID is it is outdoor seating, and interesting to see our citizens out enjoying the beautiful December and November afternoon and evenings we have. So I appreciate your comments, sir. Thank you.
Thank you.
Madam Secretary, any other hands raised from the public, please?
There are none, Chair.
Okay, thank you very much. We'll close public comment. Tyra, thank you so much. Great presentation, and we're all looking forward to this great plan. And we look forward to enjoying our streets and our parks and our open space and all of that good stuff downtown. Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you for having me.
We are now at item 8B, Director Walker.
Thank you, Chair McMahon. So the Commission Roadmap. Tonight we are on road stop number 7, and it is intended to present an overview of the park development process. Because of the amount of information related to this topic, Park Planner Hugh Hesterman requested to break the presentation up into 2, maybe even 3 parts. So tonight he will focus on the development process for neighborhood parks. Hugh?
Good evening, Commissioners. In front of you, you have the roadmap that you've seen before. Tonight, as Director Walker pointed out, we are on road stop number 7. Tracy, please go to the next slide, please. As Director Walker mentioned, this got to be a very unwieldy discussion, and so we are planning to break it down into 3 manageable parts. And tonight is part 7A, specifically talking about the development process for neighborhood parks. We will touch a little bit on the other types of facilities like community parks, regional parks, accessible open space, special purpose facilities, bikeways, and trails, but largely we'll leave that discussion to a future presentation. Next slide, please. So before you tonight, the park development process specifically on neighborhood parks. Next slide, please. The primary purpose of neighborhood parks is to provide nearby residents within ready access to basic recreational facilities and some green open space. Next slide, please. The need for new neighborhood parks is driven by the development of new neighborhoods, or perhaps more properly said, residential development increases the number of city residents, which in turn increases the need for new parkland, all based on our city standard ratios as are listed in our general plan. Neighborhood parks are considered the basic building blocks of the park and rec system and are intended to primarily serve residents within a half-mile or a 10-minute walk. Neighborhood parks are intended to serve the basic recreational needs of families by providing some open flat turf for play, playgrounds, small picnic facilities, shade and green, urban relief, walking paths, connections to bikeways, and hopefully a sports court for recreational play. Note that with the trend towards smaller backyards, as we've seen larger homes on smaller lots for a lot of subdivisions, the individual residential space for backyard play has been reduced. And this even further increases the need for neighborhood park space. Next slide, please. New residential development is required per our standards to provide the minimum parkland requirement of 1.8 acres of neighborhood parks per 1,000 acres. Excuse me, that should actually be per 1,000 persons. There's a mistake there, I just saw. I apologize for that. New neighborhood parks are programmed to be 6 to 9 acres in size, and park planners, it's best if people like me are involved at the earliest stages of subdivision planning to ensure that the parks are sized and located appropriately. It is actually a function of city planning to ensure that the city provides its proper service levels as development occurs. Park planners can be involved to determine if a park is needed in a new development, especially larger ones, and if so, to help determine the proper size, shape, and general location that would best serve those new residents. Next slide, please. So you've seen the picture of the three-legged stool before, and that applies to all park and rec facilities as it does specifically to neighborhood parks. So we need to have the appropriate amount of land in suitable locations, and that would be to meet our standards. And that's identified in our general plan and the park and rec master plan and in specific area plans. We also need to have enough funding for development of the facilities at the time they are needed. And thirdly, we need to have sufficient funding to maintain the facilities into perpetuity. So regarding item 2, the funding for development of the facilities, that's generally provided by the park development impact fees, at least we hope it is. However, our current impact fees, as you know, are insufficient to fully develop new neighborhood parks. And so the city is currently working on a program to update its impact fees through a new AB 1600 study. AB 1600 is the legislation that allows local agencies to extract development impact fees. And until that study is completed and approved, park planners continue to seek creative solutions to offset the problem. We've been doing a pretty good job at that lately, and we're trying to bring our current number or current ratio of neighborhood park land up from where it currently sits to the required 1.8 acres per 1,000 residents. And maintenance costs, step number 3 or leg number 3 there, is largely done through lighting and landscaping maintenance assessment districts for neighborhood parks specifically. The city does try to provide 90% of the funding through the lighting and landscaping maintenance assessment districts, and then remaining about a 10% funding from the general fund. And the idea there is to demonstrate to everyone that the neighborhood parks, although they are intended to serve the local residents primarily, they also are a city facility that is open to all. So that's the reason for that extra 10%. So we're going to go and look at a couple examples. Next slide, please. New development, as I mentioned it, the intention is that new residential development have a nearby neighborhood park or community park within the half mile or a 10-minute walking distance. And a really good example of how we achieve this for an infill site is with the new subdivision called Farmstead, located southeast of the intersection of North Orchard and Fruitvale. So this was an infill project. It's about a 20-acre site. And in this case, the 6-acre minimum size neighborhood park would take too much of the infill project, that it would eat up too much of the housing available, and it could not be funded with the homes that would be built on that site. Next slide, please. So here's an enlargement of what was referred to as Hemlock Park, meaning it was supposed to be. It was envisioned as an expansion of Hemlock Elementary School. And I think you can see the circle, kind of a grayed out grayish green circle around that park site that indicates that half-mile radius or 10-minute walk. And I should point out that that is sometimes interrupted by, say, a major street or a canal or mountain ridge or a freeway. So it's not an exact half-mile distance as the crow flies, but rather a walking distance. In this particular case, what is now labeled Hemlock Park, or currently labeled Hemlock Park, has been officially named Dreamers Park. It is located within the Farmstead subdivision. It is not yet complete, but in this particular case, we were able to save many of the original mature trees that were located on the old farmstead. And that is something really unusual and special to have in a new park, to have a large quantity of new trees. So that's a big advantage of that particular site. Next slide, please. So site requirements and attributes. Generally, there are many attributes that contribute to a proper park siting of neighborhood parks within a new subdivision, and I'm going to mention a few of them. Central location within the residential neighborhood, so obviously so people can get to it easily. Connections to either existing or planned pedestrian and bikeways. That it have sufficient roadway frontage, and that it have an unobstructed view from public roadways. And there's a number of reasons for that, but one of the most obvious is to provide a sense of security or visibility from the roadway so that those who are using the park can feel like they are with an easy sight of those passing by. Next slide, please. And here's a few more attributes that we seek to obtain with new neighborhood parks. A reasonable length to width ratio. I would say generally a 3-to-1 length to width ratio is the maximum we'd want. We wouldn't want to get a long skinny park that really didn't have any use. So we search out sites that are at least that kind of dimension. And it should have minimal back on and side on lots. And with that, I mean homes that have their backyards or even their side yards immediately adjacent to the park itself. And the reason for that is because those are not good adjoining land uses. So in other words, we have a lot of concerns both from the residents that live in those homes and then also from the park users where they conflict sometimes. You know, a stray ball going in someone's backyard or someone's dog being agitated by kids playing in the park and that sort of thing. Another attribute is unique site characteristics. And as a park planner, this is something I really work hard to find and keep if it's possible. It might be a mature tree. It might be a creek. It might be a unique rock formation. Could be all kinds of different things that can have something unique about the site. And so we don't end up with a cookie cutter park, one that just looks like the next. Another thing that is very useful is topography. So if the land itself has some sort of change in topography, and it's not just a flat slate, so to speak. And then the last one I have listed here is opportunities for joint use, so as to multiply benefits. Some of those could be, a real obvious one might be having a elementary school right next door. In that case, even if there's a fence that divides the two properties, they make good neighbors because the kids who are using the park on the weekend are oftentimes the kids that go to that very same school. We seek to have opportunities for the public to access the school sites and vice versa during the school day. If you have maybe a science class or a phys ed activity, something like that, we can go out into the park and use the park. And of course, it's just a non-conflicting land use. Next slide, please. So we'll talk a little bit about how parks are designed, specifically looking at neighborhood parks. We typically first begin initializing a site layout when we're looking at the characteristics that we just talked about of individual land being considered for neighborhood park, and also looking at the off-site characteristics. And we talked a little bit about like a school makes a good off-site characteristic. adjacent land uses influence the basic design of the park. If you have a walkway that can access the park, or maybe even go through the park, we certainly want to take advantage of those types of things. Recreational needs of the neighborhood dictate the kinds of amenities that are included, and they influence the design. For a new residential neighborhood, you usually look at children, school-age kids that would use the park for things like a playground, picnic facilities, open play field, those types of things. But that could actually change. If you were to put a neighborhood park, for example, in a senior limited type of neighborhood, you might totally change what amenities should go in that neighborhood park. But in every case, we look down the road as far as we can. So as a neighborhood might mature and perhaps even gentrify, that you have a concept of how the amenities that are designed in the park could be adapted for future generations. And finally, the last bullet, you got to look at available funding, because that totally dictates the extent for what can be done on site and what amenities can be included. Next slide, please. So neighborhood parks should not include amenities that draw large quantities of people from outside the neighborhood. Some examples of these are lighted sports fields, large group picnic areas, specialty facilities like community centers, pools, skate parks, and the like. And larger and better funded neighborhood parks can sometimes include amenities such as larger, and with this I mean sort of a medium-sized play field, or medium-sized group picnic areas, maybe multiple sports courts, and possibly restrooms. All of these we've seen in the new park in Southtown, Magnolia Park, which will ultimately be about 12 acres in size. And we have other neighborhood parks that have various pieces of this. And so it just depends upon the size and the funding. Next slide, please. I want to talk a little bit about turnkey parks. We've mentioned this in some of our prior presentations, and so I want to go into a little bit more of the depth of how turnkey parks can be utilized and benefit both the community that surrounds them and also the developer who might be constructing them for the city. So turnkey parks require at least a basic description of the elements that are to be provided, so both parties, meaning the city and the developer, can agree on what the design might be expected to cost. And the slide that you see right here, this was drawn from the North Village specific plan, dated I think 1995, I believe, and it gives just a real cursory look at the southern end of that park site. You see the elementary school that was slated to go in Area Plan 1 of North Village, and on the north end you see the neighborhood park that was envisioned to be adjacent to this elementary school. Now, since then, a lot of things have changed. And so this concept, this specific plan, included this concept sketch, kind of laid out what could be in this park. And the next slide will show you what actually ended up going in at that park that we now know as Corderos Park. Next slide, please. So here's the master plan for Corderos Park. And it followed the description as I've laid out before. We had to look at the site size, the shape, the location. All of these things were actually changed and mutated a bit through the planning process. The site characteristics, this particular site had almost nothing in terms of any kind of existing characteristics. And so we had to put some topography into design a change in undulations a little bit, and drainage, and all the things that give the park a little bit of character. Budget, construction, both for construction and maintenance, were taken into big consideration. This was built on a very tight budget. In fact, at one point, we were considering the possibility of not even being able to build the entire site. We stretched the dollars and we tweaked the design. One example of this particular park site is there is not one single bench that is actually installed around the perimeter of the park. There are bench sites, and we're hoping that maybe some people would put in a memorial bench at this location. That was one of the ways we cut back on the budget. We also looked at the specific neighborhood desires. So for North Village, we had multiple neighborhood meetings because the homes were largely occupied by the time it became time to build, for the city to build the park. This was supposed to have been a turnkey park, we thought, but it actually was not called out that in the development agreement. And the developer, when they found out that the funding was so short, they said, well, we don't want to build it. And the city ended up building the park. There also were very few other nearby recreational amenities. So we wanted to include all those things that we've talked about before. We would have liked to include a basketball court. And actually there's a flat site at the southern end of this park that could be adapted at some later point to put in a basketball court. We looked at the city standards for neighborhood parks and accessibility, safety, and ADA standards, and of course security, as we've mentioned before. That includes some low-level lighting, just to provide visibility through the park at night. As you know, our parks are largely closed at night, and so that lighting does not intend to meet pedestrian standards, but simply to give a driver's by a view into the park. Next slide, please. So after a master plan is developed and goes through all the process of review by both the residential review, the commission, staff review, a final master plan then is submitted for approval by the Park and Rec Commission, which in this case was done. And we typically, for neighborhood parks, we typically don't need to go any further, meaning it doesn't need council approval, other than at the time of when a construction contract is to be let through a capital improvement project and for funding the project. That actually, the funding in the capital improvement project is actually going to be the subject of roadmap stop number 8. Next slide, please. So we've come to the end of the neighborhood park development process. I'd be happy to entertain any questions.
Hugh, thank you so much. Very informative as always. We will open questions up for the commission. Any questions for Hugh Hesterman? Commissioner Leonard.
Thanks for another great presentation, Hugh. So if I know that plans have to change from master plan stage to actual implementation, and correct me if I misspeak, but if you have to make adjustments to what was discussed in the plan publicly, does it then go back for public comment before those changes are made, or how is that usually handled?
Yeah, that's an excellent question. It all depends upon the severity of the change. So, and that can be a judgment call. There are many, many minute details that are changed, or at least defined, maybe is a better way to put it, as you take a park master plan and actually put it into design drawings, because little details come up that maybe you hadn't thought about at the either the concept level or the master plan level. But all major components should remain true to the original master plan, and the general layout should remain, and the general feel character that maybe has been defined by the master plan, that all should remain through the process. So there is a judgment call by perhaps either the staff working on it or the department chair. If it's a significant enough change that one of those components really is altered in some way, then we typically would come back to the commission and ask if you want to go back through an approval process, or if in some cases it can be just simply, yeah, that's what we had in mind, no problem, proceed. One example that just recently has been the changes that happened that are in process at Patch Park, for example. Originally, there was more softball fields planned for that, and the needs of the city have have changed somewhat, and so that we really now need a rectangular field more than multiple ball fields at that location. So that master plan, those changes that were proposed did come back to the commission. That was a pretty good example of where we had an existing approved master plan, and then time elapsed. The needs of the city were better identified, and so that master plan was brought back before the commission. Does that answer your questions?
It does. Thank you so much, Hugh.
Sure.
Thank you very much. Any other commissioner comments for Hugh Hesterman? Seeing none, I will open it for public comment. Madam Secretary, any hands raised from the public?
I see none, Chair.
Thank you very much. We will close public comment. Hugh, thank you so much. We are very fortunate to have you as our park planner for the city and for this department, and we appreciate everything you do out there, sir. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Chair McMahon.
Thank you. Okay, moving on. We are now at agenda item 10, committee reports. At this time, Director Walker, would you like to make a comment on committee reports, ma'am?
I sure would. Thank you, Chair McMahon. I just wanted to inform the commission as well as the public that the Youth Sports Advisory Team report will be presented by Commissioner Thompson. Under reports of the commission, it was inadvertently left off of the committee reports section of the agenda. It will be on the agenda on January 6th so that those members of the public who were maybe looking for that item, it will be reported out again as well under committee reports at the January 6th meeting. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Director Walker, for that. Okay, 10A, Play for All Park Task Force. Commissioner Lujan.
Hello, thank you, Chair. Yes, so as you can see, these pictures, there's a lot of great work being done. Construction's going well. The grading has been completed, and the underground utilities like the sewer, water, and storm drainage have been installed. And also curbs, gutters, and sidewalks are in process as well. And so as well as work on the parking lot and inner street will be paved. Followed by the picnic structures and installation of landscaping. So I thought this was really cool because there was some halts, everything going on with the state of the economy with COVID, and but it's great to see and drive by there and see the progress that's being made. There are still available more bricks for construction of the entrance plaza, so that's actually a chance to donate and get a brick that you can have, engraved or painted on that is as a part of a fundraiser. So if you guys are interested or anyone's interested in buying a brick, you can go to playforall.vacaville.org. But that's really, really neat to see and exciting to see, progress being made, and hopefully it'll be up soon.
Thank you very much. And yes, it is exciting to see the progress being made out there after many years of planning. This is going to be just an exciting premier park for Vacaville. So that's exciting. Thank you very much, ma'am. 10B, Eleanor Nelson Park Committee, and that's myself. This committee I've been on for about 4 years now, and we are very close to presenting a draft plan to the commission here, and we are hoping to do that here next year, January 6th meeting at 2021. This is an exciting plan for a community park here in Vacaville, and I'm really excited about it, and I'm really excited to present it or be a part of it, the presentation at the next meeting in January. I don't know that there's been many changes. They're just finally doing some fine tuning on the plan itself, and that should be presented to the commission on next month's meeting. Reggie, do you have anything to add to that, sir?
Thank you, Commission Chair. I think you've pretty much covered it all. Yeah, they wanted to try to push through right before Thanksgiving to get it done, but we talked about it, and I didn't want them to rush it through. To take their time and make sure that we have a solid plan and a solid draft for the Commission to approve in January. And of course, the Commission is aware that some of the holdup was that the elderberry beetle and some of the assessments that we had to go through to get the plan right. So in addition to, they lost one of their main staff persons, Olga, who started the process with us and took another job, and Patrick had to pick up the ball and run with it, and he's done a really good job. So yeah, at the January 6th meeting, we'll have a final draft plan for the commission to review and approve. So thank you.
Excellent. Thank you very much, Reggie. Agenda item 11, reports of park planner Hugh Hesterman.
Okay, I'm back in front of you again. I have no slides for you tonight, and I have a very brief update. So I will proceed. Wanted to let the commission know that the Park and Rec Master Plan is progressing. Staff recently returned extensive comments to the consultant on the admin draft, and we actually are hoping to schedule a date with the commission to review the draft work sometime in early January. So Tracy or somebody will be contacting you about possible dates for that. I hope by now that you all, or hopefully soon, will have had a chance to visit Nasha Mesto Park, our newest addition to the park system over in Brighton Landing. It's really fun to walk through there and see people actually using the park, and to watch the trees mature and see the community enjoying it. You also can visit Dreamers Park in its current state in the Farmstead subdivision over off of North Orchard. I drove through there over the Thanksgiving weekend, just to see how the trees are looking. And let's see, I also wanted to report back out on the question about the missing link bike path that would connect this subdivision to the bike path that is east of Stinson Avenue. And I found out through our Public Works Department that there are some holdups on getting that to happen because of property owner negotiations. So that doesn't seem to, I don't think it's going to be part of this project. That'll be a separate project that comes later to make that bikeway connection actually occur. And then finally, I just wanted to tell you that right now, actually on my desk this evening, I have detailed plans for the construction of Phase 1 Roberts Ranch, which includes the new dog park that'll be located north of Fry Road and also available from within the Roberts Ranch subdivision. And the developer tells me that they expect to begin work on that phase, I guess, early next summer. And so if there's any questions, I'd be happy to answer those. Otherwise, that is the end of my report for this evening.
Thank you, Hugh. Any commissioner comments or questions for Hugh Hesterman this evening? I see none, Hugh. Thank you very much, sir.
My pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you. Item 12, reports of Recreation Manager Reggie Hubbard.
Thank you again, Commission Chair. Just a couple quick items. Unfortunately, we have moved back into the purple tier of COVID. We were in the red the last time we met. We moved back to the purple, which is a little more restrictive, unfortunately. So with that said, most of our programs, we had to cancel some of our programs, of course, our indoor programs, trying to move some of our indoor programs outdoors and or going virtual. That's kind of where we are right now, but I appreciate staff. They're just, going with the flow, and every time we get get lemons, we make lemonade. So with that said, we still have a few things coming over the holidays, and one, we have a mass drive Wednesday, December 16th from 4 to 6 o'clock at the Three Oaks Community Center. We're working with one of our contractors who is helping make some of the masks. We are taking donations as well, mask donations as well. It's a maximum of 2 masks per car. The masks will be cleaned and sanitized. We know that, like I said, moving back into the purple tier, and just with the holidays and the numbers spiking, that there may be a need for masks. So, we're doing this and hoping, that the community will come out and if they're in need of a mask, then come on Wednesday, December 16th, Three Oaks Community Center. And if you want to donate masks, you can call Morgan Kruger at 449-4030. She's the coordinator that's assisting and coordinating this event. Once again, that's Morgan Kruger, 449-4030. She's done a good job with coordinating this, and it's also we're working with the city. The city has a group that it's like a support group of city employees that put on events, and we're working with that group as well. That's also internally within the city donating masks as well. So hopefully we have a lot of masks, but hopefully we get a good turnout on this day. What do you got up next, Tracy? So we have story time with Santa. Typically around this time, we do Santa visits where Santa and Mrs. Claus and one of the elves will go into your home and they will read a story and they will bring gifts and so on and so forth. Of course, with COVID, we can't do that. So we changed it up a bit. So we're doing story time with Santa where you can sign up for $20. It's either a phone or a Zoom call, and it's a pre-recorded Zoom message with Santa Claus, and Santa will read a book. The book that he will read is Ben's Christmas Carol by Toby Ford. And like I said, it's a 20-minute call. And if you register for the story time with Santa, there's a couple perks related to this. You get a $3 credit for Bounty Books, which is one of the sponsors. And you also get put into a raffle for Nugget Market. And you will get the winner of the raffle will get a traditional holiday meal valued at $129. And so you sign up for the story time with Santa. Your kid can Zoom in with Santa, get the story read. In addition to, you have an opportunity to win a full holiday meal from the Nugget Market valued at $129. So these are just some of the things that we're trying to do with just moving into that purple tier where you have to social distance and you can't do anything indoors. So staff is just working really hard trying to still bring some joy and some holiday festivities to the Vacaville community. We also have just wanted to let the commission know that the Georgie Duke Center is being used as a shelter, and I'll probably let Commissioner Broomman talk more about that since he's pretty closely tied to that event. So I'll let him talk about that a little bit under commissioner comments. Also, let's see, I think my counterpart, Melody Ocampo, has a few things to share. But with that said, I just want to say happy holidays to the commission. I think this is, of course, our last meeting of this year, so happy holidays. And I'll see you in 2021. But I think, Mel, I think you have a few things, correct?
Yes, that's correct. Thank you.
Okay.
You guys all hear me?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, perfect. Yeah, just a few clips. There you go, Tracy. I see you navigating over there. So I just wanted to share out, Tracy, if you can zoom out so everyone can see the full page, or sliding, yes. I just wanted to share, we did host some community meetings for some upcoming park projects. We're hoping to go for some grant funds. As you all know, I gave quite a bit of detail about that at our last meeting. So for both Trower Park and Sierra Vista School Park, what you see on the screen now are some upcoming meetings. So we're trying to catch people doing some weekend virtual Zoom meetings coming up. For Trower Park, we have one on December 19th. And then Sierra Vista, we're doing another evening on Monday, December 21st, and then a Saturday morning on January 9th. So I just wanted to make everyone aware. We picked these dates today, and so just wanted to give a little shout out and take the opportunity to share them with you all today. And we'll be starting our social media campaign and getting some more information about these upcoming dates, especially the ones that are just a little over 2 weeks away. So, and to just let you know that we had some good participation at our last two meetings back in November, and we're we're still compiling some of that and going to be working with our park planners to get into some of those specifics so we can share that at our next community meetings and gather even more feedback and continue our progress on trying to design kind of the park, a community designed park, if you will. So that is it. Thank you so much, you guys.
Melody, thank you so much. Reggie, thank you very much for that. We appreciate it. Item number 13, reports of Director Carrie Walker.
Chair McMahon.
Go ahead. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Sorry, Chair McMahon, I had a question for Melody.
Yes, ma'am. Go ahead. I apologize.
Sorry to interrupt. I just wanted to say, great job with the 2 community meetings. I was able to attend both of those for the Brown Markham and Sierra Vista community meetings. And I thought there was a really good turnout. And the feedback from the community was really good. I did have a couple of suggestions and recommendations for staff, though. I'm wondering if when the meetings are being scheduled that we can try to avoid, as best as possible. It seems like there's Zoom meetings every night, but other meetings, the Brown and Markham meeting conflicted with the Planning Commission meeting. And actually one of the commissioners mentioned that. I was able to sign on to that meeting after the Markham meeting. And then also the Sierra Vista meeting conflicted with the YSAT meeting. And I know a lot of our YSAT constituents use Sierra Vista. Either they receive it as a field allocation for their organization. And I think that they would probably have some really good feedback. And I think just in general, trying to ensure that our YSAT constituents get information about the community meetings that are happening at the various neighborhood parks, since they do tend to use those for field allocations, and they're kind of like a active constituent that we can really engage in those conversations. And then a question that I did have that came up at both of those presentations was there was a presentation on the ecosystem from, I can't remember the organization, Solano something. And I'm just wondering kind of like what drives that. Is it based on the grant funding from Prop 68? But just kind of had concerns and questions about that, since that didn't seem to be like a request of the community. So just wondering if it's being driven by grant funding.
Yes, thank you, Commissioner. You're absolutely honing in on exactly what it is. It's a grant requirement that we have ecological elements incorporated into the project. And so we just kind of wanted to bring those to the forefront and provide a little information on what might work in the those parks and the other areas in the neighborhood. And we'll be double, triple checking our dates. And this is the first time we've actually shown these publicly. So I'll just put that caveat out there that they might be adjusted pending just a double, triple check with other community meetings.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Melody.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Commissioner Vasquez. Sorry, I did not see your hand raised, ma'am. I apologize. Any other questions or comments for Reggie or Melody from the commission? Okay, I see no hands raised. We will now go to item 13, reports of Director Carrie Walker.
Thank you, Chair. I just wanted to echo Reggie's sentiment about the staff and acknowledge, these have been very challenging times, and they have been very supportive of the community with the Duke being used as a warming shelter now, and also McBride is being used as a COVID testing site, and that's happening Monday through Friday from 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. So we relocated all of our staff from that facility, and they've been working in a bullpen type situation over at Elatis, which we have just scaled back to avoid having, multiple staff in the same room. So we've got more staff working remotely. And just when we thought we saw a little daylight at the end of the tunnel, and we actually had 16 classes running in gymnastics, and 10 of our team members had returned, we're back in purple and had to cancel all of those programs. But they're hanging in there, and I just want to commend them. They're doing a great job, and we really appreciate them. And so, yeah, our senior meal program is continuing, and McBride is being used as a COVID center and Duke as a warming shelter. And did want to wish all of you happy holidays, and stay safe, stay healthy, and we'll see you in 2021. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Director Walker. Any commissioner comments for Director Walker? I see none. Thank you, Director Walker. We are at item number 14, reports of the commission. We will start with Commissioner Bruman.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, great things. I mean, Tyra had some great things. I'm looking forward to seeing that Streetscape come to life and everything that's going on. There's some great things, and I know it all takes funds. And then I know that Reggie mentioned me regarding the warming center. Yeah, I'm a little tied in with that.
You there, Commissioner Bruman? It sounds like we might have lost him.
They have their dinner or take a shower and things like that, and then they leave. Some of them do stay, like I said, but every night more and more of them are coming in now that the word's coming out that it's a safe place and no one's going to get harassed for anything. But I mean, it's a great thing that's going on, especially as cold as it's been in early mornings. So some great things, and I just want to wish everybody a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year.
Thank you very much for that, Commissioner Bruman. Commissioner Leonard.
Thank you, Chair. I just wanted to say kudos to the staff and the city. I'm always so impressed by the level of thought and detail and expertise that goes into planning and programs from multiple departments. I know those are moving targets for you all. You're very committed to your profession and doing the best you can with limited resources for the public. So kudos to all of you in the Parks and Rec Department and others that reported tonight. And Merry Christmas, Happy New Year to everybody.
Thank you, Commissioner Leonard. Commissioner Lujan.
I'd like to echo those sentiments. Just with everything that has happened in 2020, just kudos and again, and to echo those sentiments, the staff has done a great job. It can't be easy for anyone during this time trying to maneuver all this, especially when lots is at stake. So appreciate your work this year in 2020. Lots of successes, just making it through, and looking forward to entering into 2021 and lots of great things, I'm sure, for the new year. So congratulations. See you all in 2021.
Thank you very much, ma'am. Commissioner Thompson.
Yes, thank you. As mentioned, I did want to give a brief update to the YSAT meeting that was held on November 19th. It was a fairly somber meeting, as it was just one day after moving back to the purple tier. So lots of the leagues were obviously looking for, as most people were looking for, a move in the other direction. So it was a fairly somber meeting. Reggie did a good job talking about the purple tier and what those requirements mean for youth sports. And then subsequent to the meeting, he provided an email to all of the league representatives with state guidelines for youth sports and what the state guideline allows and how we use that as a city to regulate our youth sports program. So he did a great job representing that. Reggie also provided an update on contract extensions and that the city attorney is currently working on those. Most of the leagues are in hiatus mode. They're all staying in a holding pattern, waiting to see what happens, with the exception of Pony. Pony is the only league that is currently accepting registrations, although they admit that they are about 10% of where they were last year. But they are moving forward as business as usual with their fingers crossed. The other leagues are still waiting for their governing bodies to provide some direction. Let me see. Public Works reminded everyone that there is a moratorium in December and January while they go out and do some maintenance on the fields. So that was covered and reviewed. And then Reggie provided an update from questions from the previous meetings, some issues with Public Works regarding an issue at Nelson Park with generators and cell towers, and then some completion of works on Keating 2. And also an update on the field allocation document that is currently with staff. So that is a fairly high level overview. It will be a formal item on the next Parks and Recreation Commission meeting in January. But I wanted to get that out to everyone who is on the call and the other commissioners. Other than that, everyone, happy holidays, be safe and be healthy.
Thank you very much for that update on YSAT, Commissioner Thompson. Thank you, sir. Commissioner Vasquez.
I just wanted to echo everybody's sentiment too. 2020, the year of pivoting, and just thank staff for all their efforts this year in pivoting all of their programs and activities. Definitely looking forward to 2021, and really hope that you all and wish you all some happy holidays, and hope everybody stays safe and healthy through the holidays. I did have one question just about our 2021 schedule. If someone from the staff could send that to us so I can get the dates on our calendar. I don't think we have those yet. That would be great. And hope everyone has a happy holidays and see you in the new year.
Thank you very much for that, ma'am. Vice Chair Rucker.
Yes, thank you. I'm going to echo everyone else's echo. It's been an interesting year, but ultimately I'm just really incredibly proud to be a commissioner for this department. You know, Director Walker, everybody on that entire team has really done, in my opinion, a phenomenal job of not only fielding questions, but just really making the most out of it. Reggie, you mentioned earlier about taking lemons in terms of lemonade, and all of you have done a phenomenal job, and I'm just so incredibly proud to be a commissioner for this department. So happy holidays. Don't have anything else to add, but I appreciate you all.
Thank you very much, sir. And I'm up, and I'm going to share the same sentiments about this team and this staff and this commission. 2020 has been a different year for all of us, and it has affected us all in one way. For one, I learned to Zoom this year, which I didn't even know what Zoom was last year at this time. When you think back about what we were planning last year during this time on these commissions, we were planning VPAT and acts coming in and Creek Walk. That all changed for us. So, you know, to this staff, the importance of this department and this staff to this city, you have proven yourself every week here in Vacaville. We started out with COVID, which created a senior help hotline, which created our senior hot meal program, which is currently still going. Extremely proud of that. We have absolutely served, I don't know the exact number, but thousands of meals, hot meals to our seniors, our vulnerable populations over the past several months through staff and hundreds of volunteers from Vacaville. And it couldn't be done without them. So thank you so much. We, unfortunately, we experienced devastating wildfires in our town. Within hours, this department, again, had shelters throughout the city, which became places for people to find a safe place to be for a time or a couple days, hours, meals, just simply incredible. And now we are have a warming center, and we're doing great things out there in the community, and that is a tribute to the director and this team and the staff, and we appreciate you guys so much. You have been a lifeline to many people in this city over the past 12 months. So thank you. We're proud of you. I'm extremely proud to be part of this team. And I look forward to 2021. And I hope we can get back to doing some of the fun stuff that this department does. With that said, everybody, please have a safe holiday, a happy new year. And with that said, we will adjourn this meeting until Wednesday, January 6th, 2021. Good night, Vacaville.